All right, I had a show on Friday where we discussed a clip of a woman talking about immigration in Chicago. During that clip, I left my desk. I left my desk to take care of things personal. I came back, it was over, but I was told later that she said some things that I really should have been there to hear because they were very important.
The 37th Ward, Chicago SHREDS is our organization. Because we started this session with a prayer, I want to start my comment with a scripture. 1 Timothy 5:8 says, "But if any provide not for his own, and specifically for those of his own house, he hath denied the faith and is worse than an infidel." So I want to talk to y'all today about not going to hell. In the 37th Ward, there was a family, the Jones family. Amarie Jones was standing in her family building that they've owned for 40 years doing a TikTok dance with her mother. A bullet came through the window, hit her in the neck. She fell to the ground in front of her mother and bled to death.
Now, for the record, guys, initially, this is where I got up and left. So I did not, until after the show, even hear her entire speech. Let's keep her going.
A month ago on the Chicago mugshot page, her mother was on that page. Her mother had on her daughter's Rest in Peace t-shirt. She washed it so many times that it was completely faded out. She was completely high, out of her mind, and the charge was possession. Now, the first $51 million that this council gave to the migrants came from the opioid settlement funds. I am here on behalf of the Jones family, on behalf of the 37th Ward, on behalf of Black Chicago, on behalf of the entire city, to ask you all to vote no and put that money back in the opioid settlement fund. We need that money in my neighborhood. We need that on my block. That woman should not be at Cook County Jail because she's grieving over a random act of violence that caused her to lose her child in front of her face, when the city of Chicago has millions upon millions upon millions of dollars to give to people who ain't paid a dime into the tax base. We've been in my building for 52 years. We're about to pay some more taxes. The Jones family has been in their building for 45 years, paying taxes every year on time. So I'm asking y'all to use our tax money for our people. We need it. We got people leaning. We got people rocking. We got overdosing. We got pass out lines. You live on the west side, Mayor Johnson. You know exactly what I'm talking about. We need the money for us. We need opioid treatment on the west side of Chicago. We are the headquarters of the cartel, and everybody in here knows it. They selling more drugs than the law can allow, and y'all giving money back to them because they traffic those people up here, so we paying them going and coming. Absolutely not. We pay too much. It costs too much money to live in this city. Help Wanda Jones. Help every other grieving mother who feels like she has to go get high to get over the loss of her child. This is a woman who lived in that house. She still sleeps in that living room where her daughter passed out and bled to death. So I'm asking y'all to say no, put these people on the back burner, and put the money back in the opioid fund. We need that money. Thank y'all.
Wow. How could anybody disagree with what she's saying here? I want to know how you disagree with it. I mean, she just told you that $51 million were taken out of the opiate settlement fund and used for migrants. Now, she said given to the migrants. I can't verify that, but it was used for the migrants. I don't know about giving, they say, here goes the money. I don't know about that. But used in the form of services or whatever, spent. I think that's what she meant. The city of Chicago did appropriate an additional $51 million to deal with the influx of migrants coming from the southern border. This funding came from the Illinois Opiate and Vaping Settlement Fund. The funds are expected to last a few months. The decision was made after a contentious debate and was passed by the Chicago City Council. However, Tim, it's important to note that it's a complex issue with many viewpoints and factors at play. She got them dead to rights. She has them dead to rights, folks. Now, I supported her. I said she was right initially, but she's even righter. She's even righter because she's pointing out an actual policy, an actual action that was done by the city council that goes against the people. We looked at the list of issues and things that people care about. That extends to states. The issues that people say that matters in America are not that different from state to state. All Americans are affected by inflation. All Americans are impacted by the cost of living. And those Americans who are impacted by border or immigration are speaking up. What I've been noticing that there are people that think if you speak up about immigration, somehow you're anti-Latino or anti-Chinese, because there's a lot of Chinese people coming across the border too, or anti some other group. Why come people just can't be tired of being out of resources? Why come some people can't be labeled something like, I don't know, want to know where their money's going? Want government services for the people that pay for the government services to begin with. I want to start flipping it, guys. We got to start saying that the people that say to us that there's something wrong with us for pointing out that our government is not taking care of American citizens, we got to flip it so that those people get shamed. Yeah, I'm tired of people running in my comment section, emailing me, DMing me, all this stuff as if they don't care at all about black people catching hell in these cities or Latinos catching hell in these cities. There's been a number of Latinos complaining, a lot of Hispanic Americans complaining about the immigration issues in their state or their city as well. It's not just black folks. It's all folks. A caller, I put my phone number out. Well, not my phone number. I put out a link because what I want to start doing more of, and I've already started it. Jesus Christ. I want people to have the opportunity to call up and leave a voicemail that could be played on the show. So one of my viewers left a voicemail about the immigration.
How is it legal to divert opioid state settlement funds to Chicago migrants? It's definitely immoral.
I'm going to play that one more time so everybody gets it, and I want it to be on a full screen by itself.
How is it legal to divert opioid state settlement funds to Chicago migrants? It's definitely immoral.
That's a good question. Why is it that that question can't be dealt with directly? And instead of smearing that caller or me or anybody else, why can't you answer the question? Why can't America, why come Chicago, why come Illinois, why can't all these states answer these questions? Why is it the only thing they could do is say, you're xenophobic? That's all they got for us. Oh, the latest is Tim's a grifter. He's trying to grift off immigration. First of all, kiss my ass. Which is the nicest way I could put that because I wanted to say something else. You got to remember, people are at work. I have a very intimate relationship with the opioid crisis because I lost someone very close to me due to the opiates. So if I would have heard this sister, if I would have been here to hear that, it would have definitely colored my commentary to a large degree. I want us to be able to get through this segment without me going there on that. But if you think for a second I'm grifting off immigration or that I'm grifting off of opiate addiction and treatment and lack of treatment, you're not a friend of me and never were. You're also not a decent person and you want no connection to the truth. But once again, instead of being able to address this issue head up first, directly on, and counter it with something substantive, what you'd like to do is shame us. Tell us that we are good Americans. because we want our fellow citizens and ourselves and our families to actually have resources in our communities. I'm under no delusions, man, that America's down with neglecting Black communities and poor white ones too. I get it. Poor communities get the bottom, get nothing, zero. And are told to be thankful for that. But that must stop. And isn't it very clear? Isn't it like obvious that people that feel like they are not being resourced or given resources and adequate resources in their own communities will feel a certain kind of way about other people getting that? Doesn't that make sense? Why come that is such a hard concept to get? The optics of it. It's very simple. If you're sitting at a table to eat and they don't serve you and they bring in other people in, seat them and feed them while you sit there, you may have a problem with that. But for some reason, we got people that can't put that together. Like they don't understand at all why some people would be upset about that. But you know what I figured out, folks? It is very simple. I figured out the reason why they can't understand. Yeah, I've come to a conclusion. I kind of surmised why they don't get it. Because they're not the people that are sitting there waiting. They're not them, their families, their cousins, their parents, their children, their communities, their schools, their homeless people are not the ones sitting at the table waiting for a meal while others get fed. Oh, and here goes the other kicker. It's for money that's allocated for you. Not only are you sitting at the table waiting on your resources, waiting on your meal, you have already paid for it. You're paying for the food. And other people come in and get the food. So that's something I want to be real clear here about. The other thing is this. It's all by design. It's all by design. Johnson, I just did a segment. I told you we gave $60 billion to Ukraine. We couldn't send $1 billion to Chicago. We just gave $60 billion to Ukraine. We couldn't send $1 billion to Chicago. At least then, the people that are being fed, the migrants that are being fed from the federal government. And yeah, okay, if you take $1 billion out of the Ukraine money or the Israel money and give it to the migrants to help clothe and house the migrants as you process them and decide how you're going to deal with that, at least then it would be less of a kick in the ass. It would be less of a slap in the face. It would be less of an insult. Once again, why come we can't see eye to eye on this? How can you call yourself progressive or liberal or whatever the hell you call yourself? Human being, righteous, if that's so hard for you to understand. Do you realize how many people no longer talk to me because I talk about this issue? Because see, in America, folks, in politics, this is third rail. Yeah, unless I want to go be a Trump supporter. Yeah. What you don't understand, if you're watching this show right now, you're not a supporter of the Tim Black Show, you make it real hard for me to do this. Oh, you make it so hard. You think it's just enough that you watch this video. Now, I have a show here I'm trying to do. So I had to make a decision. Am I going to stay viable as an entity that does this news and has been doing so for 12 years now? Or am I going to stand up on this issue? And I say, I'm going to stand up on this issue, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get my people to support me. So if you if you admire, if you find value in me calling this straight, talking about the immigration issue, because I know there are other people that talk about it. They don't interview presidential candidates. They don't get quoted in newspapers. I've been in 10 newspapers of note. There have been in none. So they're not risking anything. And what I'm telling you is, when you come out and you stand up for black people like this, when you stand up for poor people like this, when you stand up for working people like this, you are persona non grata. So I'm gonna need you, watcher, you viewer, I'm gonna need you to do more than just say, I watch a video sometimes. I need you to actually become a member of the Tim Black Show, because I'm doing this for us. That includes you. And you said, I watch sometime, ain't enough to keep the lights on, Johnson. And realize this cuts my water off. Realize this disconnects my cable. Realize that's how serious it is. I become an enemy of all things that aren't Republican when I do this. And I need you to have my back. And that's why people don't talk about it. For instance, guys, let's get down to business, guys. Let's be really real. Let's be really real for a second. How many people saw the sister go hard on Mary Adams on the Breakfast Club? How many people saw this? Did you see it? Give me a 1 up in the comment section if you saw this video of the sister going hard on Mayor Eric Adams of New York City on the Breakfast Club. Why do you think Mayor Eric Adams, do you really think Mayor Eric Adams or any other mayor wants a bunch of migrants coming to their state that they're not, or their city, I'm sorry, to their city that they don't have money to take care of? Do you think Brandon Johnson, or Mayor Eric Adams or any other mayor wants that? Because of the Democratic Party, you got to be down with it. That's why he got his clock cleaned. Because he's trying to argue a position he doesn't really believe in, nor has any basis of doing, other than that's what he's got to do. Now, the whole thing about the cops, bump him. If you're a cop and you ain't for eliminating qualified immunity, I got nothing to say to you. So I'm not defending Mayor Eric Adams, but what I'm saying is the Democratic Party demands that you fall on the sword for the immigrants, for the border situation, for Biden on this. That's what it is. That's what it is. That's all it is. So I want us to be crystal clear about what the system wants. I want to be crystal clear about how the Democratic Party views immigration. They view it as a winner for them. But now they're kind of moving. They support mass immigration currently. But now they're shifting because you saw that list. You saw what people want. I showed it to you earlier. We now know that's number 2 on the list. So Joe Biden's going to have to be more flexible on that. My caller, my viewer, phoned in and she asked in her own words, is it legal for Chicago City Council to take money out of the opiate settlement fund and give it to migrant uses? Money for the migrants. Here goes the answer. The legality of that act, the legality of the Chicago City Council diverting the funds from the Illinois, not just Chicago, the Illinois opiate and vaping settlement to migrant assistance would typically hinge on specific terms under which the settlement funds were allocated and how they're allowed to be used. So first we got to find out is there any rules within those funds? Settlements like these often have stipulations about how the funds must be spent. Were there any stipulations? Focusing on areas such as public health initiatives directly related to the crisis at hand. In this case, opiate addiction. So, in the settlement, were there any stipulations that the settlement money had to go to opiates or vaping? If it was just, hey, here you go, then the answer is it's legal to do whatever you want with the money. But if there were stipulations, that would be different. The city councils generally have discretion in budgetary reallocations, especially if they deem it addresses an immediate public need. So if the city council could say, but this is an emergency, we need to do this right away, so that's why we did it. And guess what? There ain't a damn thing anybody can do about it. For a definitive explanation on the legality, one would need to review the settlement's terms, any relevant state laws, and the city's charter or ordinances that dictate fund allocation procedures. We got people that are bad actors that are in this issue having this conversation. We got people doing a lot of finger pointing and a lot of blame gaming of working class people who are just trying to figure out why they have less resources in their communities and why come the federal government won't pick up the tab. That's sort of like the least you could do. I mean, if you come into a situation that doesn't have infinite resources, like a city, like New York, or like Chicago, or like wherever you live, because it's more than just two places. It just seems like our media focuses on two places, but this is happening other places as well. At the end of the day, guys, instead of pointing fingers at working class people, realize what you're doing. You say the working class people need to be more open and giving and caring. But the city or the state isn't open and caring with those working class people. If you got homeless people all across the city that have been that way for months or years, and then migrants can come in and get housed immediately, you really don't understand why that's a problem? You really don't understand why that should be addressed? And also, I think it's important for people to sound the alarm like that sister did to shame the hell out of city officials to get something done. So you understand activism. You understand protests where people are protesting the war in Gaza. That you get. You understand that. But you don't understand people protesting homelessness and opiate addiction and resources for after-school programs and school shutdowns and all the other shit that Americans are protesting about and saying, hey, we don't have the resources to take care of people that are undocumented or people that don't have the money or the means. And if the federal government wants them to come, the least they could do, or is going to allow them to come, the least the federal government could do is pay for it. It's not like America don't have the money. That's the point I want to get to. It's not like we don't have the money. We have the money to send to Ukraine. We have the money to send to Israel. You don't have the money to send to the States? They do. Someone said Sin Black is just divide and conquer. Well, whoop-de-doo. We can say that about everything, isn't it? Whoop-de-doo. We can say that about all things at all times. Everything in America is divide and conquer. My point is, it seems like the people that are shaming working class people, black folks in these cities, Hispanic folks in these cities, white folks in these cities, all folks in these cities that are complaining about the stretching of resources. The stretching of resources. You realize that. If it doesn't impact you, maybe you don't live in a city where it's being impacted, and maybe you're not of a class of people that are impacted. You ever thought about that? Maybe you got some class privilege you need to think about because it's not impacting you. Doesn't mean it's not impacting other people. I support this sister in her statement. I don't know why she wore a MAGA hat. Not a time to publicize or politicize this issue that affects your community. But hell, wear whatever hat you want. But don't let the MAGA hat fool you. There are people that don't vote for Biden or Trump that are being impacted by this. And people that vote or never vote, or people that vote or whoever they vote for. There are people all across the spectrum that are being impacted by this. It's not just Republicans making them think they got a problem. It's actual people with a problem. It's actual people with complaints. I believe it's manufactured. Reason why? Because the federal government got money for everything else. If the federal government wanted to take care of this, they could. It would be called disaster assistance. Because right now, immigration is a disaster. FEMA should be there for immigration right now, not local city budgets. And that should not be considered Islamophobic or whatever. Just keeping it real. Maybe you would be able to keep it real on this issue with us if you actually cared about the people that were complaining and actually cared about the people that say there are a lack of resources. And guess what else will happen? There would be more unity and more support in a better situation for the migrants and the entire communities if it wasn't a strain on the communities. Get where I'm going? So, if you say, Tim Black, everybody should be able to live in harmony. We should be able to help these people and be able to be okay with the people. The cities should be okay, and the homeless people already in that city should be helped. Everyone should be helped. Yes, I want us to kumbaya too. Talk to the feds. But by not funding it, like they're funding Ukraine and Israel, by not funding it, they're creating a powder keg. They're creating a Boilermaker. And we're all getting drunk off of it. They're creating this situation that's creating the discontent, that's creating the problem. And they're doing it on purpose because they had money for Ukraine. They got money for Israel. They had money for New York. They had money for Chicago. Get it? Get it? They have the money. I know it because they just passed the bill giving the money. They just allocated the money. When you say they don't have the money that they just spent or that they're willing to spend, they just said they got the money. Billions of dollars. All they need is like $1 billion to each state for this reason. And then all of a sudden, less animosity, less anger, less frustration. And then expand those services. And now once you expand those services and add more shelters or more food options or whatever, extend them also to the citizens of those cities. And then the citizens of those cities could feel like, hey, it's a good thing the migrants came because now we got more resources. They opened up 5 more food banks. They opened up 10 more shelters. They did this. They did that. That would be a win for everyone. See, all you got to do is open your mind up and stop listening to MSNBC and stop listening to CNN and stop listening to Fox and think independently about the problem. And then we could get to a place where we could actually solve the problems. Or you could be like me, get to that place and also realize America has no interest in solving the problems, not really. Could you really think no one's thought of what I'm talking about? You really think no one's smart enough to figure it out? That they could have took $1 billion of the Ukraine money and sent it to Chicago or sent it to New York? What do you think Mayor Eric Adams went to New York, went to D.C. to talk about? He went with hat in hand to D.C. asking Biden to help fund this shit, and they sent him packing. Not only did they send him packing, they told him if he keeps running his mouth, they'll run somebody against his ass. That was kind of left out of the, and I don't even like Eric Adams. I'm just keeping it a buck. I'm just keeping it real. It ain't about who I like. It's about facts. It's about truth. Step out of line, you'll step on a landmine. That's the Democratic policy. All right, guys. That makes sense? I hope it does.